And again, let me give you a really warm welcome this evening to St. Stephen's, particularly warm welcome if you've not been here before, and if you're your first time visiting with us. It's really great to see you. We called tonight music for a summer's evening, not music for a humid, hot, and thundery looking evening, but there we go, you've made it nonetheless, and we're delighted to see you. My name's Matt, and I'm the vicar here at St. Stephen's. And it's really good to see you. And it's really wonderful to welcome the Animo Ensemble, who are going to be playing for us. And we are one musician down. I don't know whether they will explain that as we go through the evening, but one of the musicians injured her thumb during the week. But you won't notice a difference. 4 is as good as 5. Well, not quite as good as 5, but they'll be excellent. So you're in for a real treat. I'm going to pop up a couple of more times during the evening, but on your chair you should have found 2 things, hopefully, or near you. There's a little piece of paper with a program on the front, and then a pencil nearby, because you'll see on the back there's a little response slip, and I will explain that later on. And inside there are a couple of verses from John's Gospel, and again we'll hear a little bit more about that later on. I've told you where the facilities are. Do please make the most of those if you need to use those. But should we put our hands together and let's welcome the Animo Ensemble, and I'll hand over to them.
Thank you very much. It's so lovely to see so many people here tonight. Thank you all so much for coming. As Matt said, we're the Animo Ensemble, and it's wonderful to be back here. I was talking with Matt just beforehand, and he said the last time we were here was 2019, which is definitely 3 years ago, but that, with what's been going on the last 3 years, feels more like 30 years ago to me. It's really, really good to be back. It says on your program's music for a summer's evening. I'm sorry that we could only provide the music and not the summer this evening for you, but I hope you have a really enjoyable evening. Our musicians this evening are Mary, who plays the French horn and the piano, Ian playing the viola, Becky on violin, and I'm Lukas, and I'm also playing violin. Matt referred to an incident this week with a broken thumb. Our regular pianist, Miriam, sadly earlier this week had a fall and broke what I'm informed is the Wayne Rooney muscle of the hand. So she, unfortunately, is not able to join us this evening, and that does mean that we've made some changes to the program. Not that you all know that, because you have the updated version, but obviously, as you can imagine, losing one musician of the group makes quite a lot of difference when there's only 5 of you anyway. So all of this week, Mary has been very, very busily working away, making rearrangements of music for us this evening, and also is playing a multitude of instruments where she was maybe only having to play the horn this evening otherwise. So a big thanks to Mary. Ian's going to tell you a little bit more about the music that's coming up right now.
So even in our usual lineup, as it were, it's not a common lineup for pieces to be written for. So we have to kind of borrow, beg, steal. No, we have to kind of borrow pieces. And the next piece we're going to play is a Mozart string quartet. But instead of the cellist playing, Mary is going to be playing the cello part on her French horn. It's just a little bit of context. Mozart wrote this when he was 16. And just, it kind of blows my mind that a 16-year-old could write this music. It's in 3 parts. There's a slow introductory, what's called an andante, so slow part to begin with. Then there's a fiery allegro, and then it finishes off with a light-hearted rondo. So we now come to a part of the concert where we're all going to play a kind of solo-y type item. And the first one we've got is Mary's going to be playing part of a Mozart horn concerto, which I'm sure you'll probably recognize that. Mary, you're going to elaborate.
Hello. So Mozart wrote 4 proper horn concertos, really. There's a few sort of other little odds and ends that people have found over the years, but there's kind of mainly 4 horn concertos. This one is labelled number 4, but actually historians think that the 2nd and the 4th concertos were actually written first, because the range of them is much more challenging for the performer, and the horn player that he wrote for was getting a bit elderly by the time he wrote the last 2. So this is number 4, but they think it's probably the 1st or the 2nd one that was written. So the Rondo from this concerto was made famous by Flanders and Swann, who wrote some rather nice lyrics to it about taking up the French horn and the neighbours not being too happy. So it's in rondo form, a bit like the movement that we just did. You'll have noticed possibly that one of the themes kept coming back again every so often. And it's sort of a bit like a musical lasagna, really. So you've got the pastory bits are the main theme, and then in between that you get sort of different things that come in. And what's really fascinating with this is that the horn in Mozart's day could not really play very many different notes, because you'll see possibly mine's got some valves on, so I can play lots of different ones. But in Mozart's day, the horn could only really play the notes on what's called the open harmonic series, but he still manages to write music that sounds fab, even with a limited range of notes, and the way that he uses the horn is really very clever. So I think this is a little bit later than the string quartet. It's number 495, apparently, but there we go.
Brilliant. It's fantastic, isn't it? Sounds really wonderful. Hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. I said I was going to pop up again, and we've called it an interview, but that's probably slightly too grand, isn't it? It's a slightly elongated introduction to the next piece of music. But we are celebrating, lots of you will know this, but some of you may not, we're celebrating here at St. Stephen's our 125th anniversary this year. So tonight, as well as enjoying the music, is a chance to remember that, and there's a little display at the back. We've tried as closely as we can to get at least one piece of music in that is from that kind of time when St. Stephen's was opened, 1897. So you're going to introduce the next piece of music in a little bit. But obviously lots of the music we're listening to is even older than that. And I just thought I would ask you with your sort of musical knowledge and experience, why is it that the music we've been listening to has just lasted so well?
So I think there's the music. What kind of makes this old music good is because it's got depth there. So you can take it at kind of different levels. It's quite pleasant to listen to, but actually to play it or then to kind of almost study it. There's so much more that you can kind of get out of it. So you can enjoy it at whatever level that you do. But that's, I think, what kind of makes different music good. And it's not to say that there is not good new music. And I think that's something to kind of, we maybe forget, is that at the time when these things were being written, there was lots of other music which has just got forgotten because it doesn't quite have that same kind of depth, that same kind of understanding behind the music there. So I think that's kind of, why we're...
Thank you very much. And I know that all of you from Animo are Christians, followers of Jesus, and I guess for lots of people, they would say, well, that's kind of even older than lots of the music we're listening to, and old for lots of people means kind of out of date and therefore irrelevant. Could you just, we're going to hear a bit more from Lukas in a bit, but for you as a Christian and a musician, could you perhaps speak into that?
So again, I think it's that thing of kind of drawing on something which is actually has got a great depth of truth there. So for us as Christians, the Bible just brings life to life effectively. It really speaks into, it makes sense of the world that we're in. And actually, as Christians, it's an interesting thing. As Christians, we believe that Jesus died, but he then rose again. So it's not something that's a dead faith, as it were. That it's about a relationship with Jesus. And one of the things that is sent to help us with that is the Holy Spirit. And it's almost a bit like, so we're kind of playing old music, and yet by performing it, we're bringing it alive. And actually that's what the Holy Spirit does for us with the Bible. So we read the Bible and the Holy Spirit illuminates it for us and helps to bring it alive for us. So it's a living thing.
And we're going to hear a bit of the Bible read in a moment, and Lukas is going to explain it for us. But Ian, were you going to just introduce this next piece of music, which roughly, if you give or take a few years, fits in with our 125th anniversary-ish? Here we go.
So this is written, well, it's based on Greensleeves, so it's Fantasia on Greensleeves. So Greensleeves is obviously very much older than that. Again, I sometimes thought that it was written by Henry VIII, so that would place it in the mid-1500s. A little bit earlier than that, 1540s. Anyway, the Vaughan Williams quite often looked back to older music, and so he wrote this, I think, in about 1910, something like that. Anyway, but he's looking back, and it takes the Greensleeves theme tune and then interweaves it with some other English folk songs as well. It was originally for orchestra, so it was originally for strings, harp, and two flutes, and we've done an arrangement, which is actually, so it's an arrangement based on another arrangement, so again, it's kind of through a few things, but again, because of our instrumentation, we need to, so that's...
Thank you very much.
I love that piece of music. It's one of those where once that main theme starts, we can just hear a collective from everyone. It's got such a nice warming feel about it, hasn't it? This next piece of music is Bach's Concerto for Two Violins, one of his most famous works and one which almost every young violinist, as they're learning and going through their grades and then looking beyond that maybe, plays. And this is one of the great things about this music that has lasted for hundreds of years for us as we play it. Every time we come back to a piece that maybe Becky or myself have played with different people, I would say maybe 15, 20 times so far. Every time you come back to it, it feels fresh and new. And it's very exciting every time to play it for a new audience with a new, we've never played it, this particular movement together. So I hope you enjoy Bach's Violin Concerto for Two Violins. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to make music again. I guess it's been sort of a year that us musicians have been back playing to people, and certainly the last 3 years has taught us never to take that for granted. To be playing to a live audience really makes it very special for us. Thank you. Lots of the music you've heard tonight, you will have heard and seen on your programs, written by Johann Sebastian Bach, a guy born in 1685. So I guess his music really has stood the test of time. Maybe you're a really big fan of his music, just like me, or maybe you've never really heard of him before. But you will have heard of him because whether it's been a string quartet at a wedding, whether it's been a TV advert backing music, or even the Beatles have used little snippets of sound from Bach's musical sound world, even little clips of his music on their records. Bach actually had a huge amount of success as a musician. He was a violinist and an organist, and he was incredibly proficient on both of these. However, it's interesting that the music he wrote that you heard tonight will not have been performed very much at the time and didn't get much of the recognition it does today. I guess that's probably because he wrote all his music for a particular season or an event or a specific purpose, meaning that once it had been played once or twice, it would probably end up somewhere at the back of his study. It was only about 150 years after Bach died that his music really resurfaced and was performed again regularly. I'm sure he would be amazed at his fame today. Bach clearly incredibly talented to write this music, to play multiple instruments to incredibly high levels. But his talent didn't protect him from having a really difficult, challenging personal life. Bach was only a young boy of 9 when his father passed away, and just 9 months later, his mother passed away too. He married at 22, and his wife passed away just 12, 13 years later. He'd marry again. He would have, or his wives would have 21 children. Devastatingly for him, 10 of these died in infancy. He outlived 10 of his children. But through all of this turbulence, the incredible highs of his musical success, the surely devastating lows of seeing your closest family members pass away around you, the one thing that remained constant for Bach throughout his whole life was his Christian faith. Bach didn't perform or write any of his music for his own fame or glory. We know this by the way he signed off each of his musical pieces that he was happy with and that were done. Much like an artist would maybe sign their name at the bottom of a painting, composers may have written their name at the bottom of their musical works. Bach, however, wrote these words, Soli Deo Gloria, Latin, that means for the glory of God alone. Clearly Bach, well acquainted with sorrow and grief, and we can so often feel this in his music as we're playing. So much of it is bouncy and joyous and vivacious, but much of his music is hauntingly beautiful, sorrowful, anguished. And yet Bach trusted in a God who through his son, Jesus, holds out an offer of life so rich and so full and eternal that as Bach faced his own death, he said these words, "Don't cry for me, for I go where music is born." The Animo ensemble you've been hearing tonight, we also all share Bach's Christian faith in a God who loves people, who will never leave us or forsake us, who will walk with us through the bad times and the good, until we're with him one day where music is born. Knowing Jesus is simply our greatest joy. And so alongside the music that we just love sharing with you, I'd love to tell you a little bit about him. The piece you just heard just now speaks of the reality of what it is like to be a Christian, a follower of Jesus. The words of the original sung version that this music is from sound like this. Sheep may safely graze and pasture in a watchful shepherd's sight. On your little programs, on I think the second page, you'll find a few words from John's Gospel, one of the 4 biographies of Jesus' life on earth. And in these words, we hear Jesus describing himself as a shepherd, the good shepherd. Now, when I think of a shepherd, I'm picturing something off Country File or something, an older man with a really, really big grey beard. He's head to toe in tweed. He's got an oversized stick, and he's red in the face from a mixture of manically shouting and chasing his sheep around the field. It is a much less common job today, being a shepherd. I guess sheep security has really modernized and improved. But in Jesus' day on earth, 2,000 years ago, shepherds were more common and a lot more vital. They led the sheep in finding pasture. They would sleep in the field with their sheep, always with them, protecting them from attack and trouble that might come. And it is this picture of a shepherd and his flock that Jesus uses to describe what he is like, who he is, and the goodness that he holds out to anyone who would follow him. Because I don't think that people like us and sheep are that dissimilar. Stay with me on this one. It is certainly my experience so far in my life that we all spend our life looking for shepherds. They might not be called shepherds. They may be people, they might be things that we look to for guidance, for protection, security, for that fulfilling life we're striving after. At home, I've got 2 small children. They're far too small to be coming to concerts that start at 7:30 in the evening at the moment. They're just about to turn 3 and 7 months old. And as their dad, I like to think of myself as a kind of shepherd for them. I want to protect them and I want to care for them, to show them what is good for them. And when children get slightly older, maybe shepherd figures will also come in the form of a teacher or a trusted adult. And then comes that period of life, if I remember rightly, starts at about 14 or 15 when you feel there's no need for a shepherd whatsoever in your life. It's the teenage shepherd-free years. But they quickly end when you go to university and realize that you have to cook your own meals, or you leave home and realize that you have to do your own laundry. As an adult, it might be a boss, it might be a significant partner in your life that you're looking to for guidance, protection, security, fulfillment. But the last few years, haven't they seen us looking to the government to keep us safe, to the National Health Service for protection? It might not always be a person we're looking to or an institution. It could be our salary, could be our pension. The thing with all those shepherds is that they're not perfect. I love my children, but I am constantly making mistakes all the time. And I won't be around forever for them either. Now, you might have put a lot of trust in someone in a personal or professional relationship and had the experience of being let down. Maybe you've been let down, or your trust in someone has been abused in some other very real way. Maybe you've lost your job and that salary you relied on has gone. Maybe just the last few years have made you think and realize your need and your longing for guidance and security more than ever. Well, Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd, the one you can follow and trust, who will never leave you, who will never let you down. If you would, have a very brief look with me at a few of the sentences in your booklets. Why is Jesus the Good Shepherd? The first sentence there, Jesus is the Good Shepherd because he lays down his life for the sheep. How do you know how much someone loves you, how much someone cares for you? Isn't it the lengths they're willing to go to care for you and to protect you? How far is Jesus willing to go? Jesus is willing to lay down his life for you. And Jesus saying that isn't just hot air, because Jesus talked the talk, but Jesus also walked the walk. Jesus did lay down his life. He was crucified on a cruel Roman cross, not because of anything that he'd done, but to show you and I how much he loves us and to make a way for us to follow him. And unlike any earthly shepherd figure who isn't around forever, as Ian said, Jesus rose from the dead to lead his sheep, his followers, into eternal life. In these few sentences in John's Gospel, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, compares himself to hired hands who also care for the sheep. The hired hands, they look a bit like shepherds too. They care for the sheep. But look what happens when trouble comes. When the wolf comes to attack, they run away. They abandon the sheep. And reality, sentence 13 tells us that they don't really care for the sheep at all. Their care is self-serving, not self-sacrificial. Do you remember Allegra Stratton? Does that name ring a bell? She was the young lady who was employed by Number 10 as head of PR or something during the pandemic. And do you remember that press conference practice sort of that got leaked where she was pretending to be Boris Johnson and fielding some questions before he would actually step up to that place where he would come and do his press conferences to most nights, it seems. That footage that was leaked was of her laughing with colleagues and giggling about having parties in Number 10 with cheese and wine whilst the country was in lockdown. And she lost her job. And over the year or two of COVID, we saw countless people in government lose their jobs, being thrown under the bus, expelled from the party, maybe just to keep the top dog hanging on in power for as long as possible. That is just one example of self-serving leadership. But Jesus is so radically different. He doesn't want to be your shepherd because he's power hungry or it's for his own gain. He wants to be your shepherd because he loves you and he truly cares for you. He wants what is best for you. He won't abandon you. He won't run away. He is the perfect, selfless shepherd. He will go so far as to lose his life if it will save you. Look at what Jesus says in sentence 14. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. I know my sheep. I love this about Jesus because it means that he's not some far-off, removed God who's distant from us, just looking down. No, Jesus knows me. He knows all of me, my joy and my sorrows, my highs and my lows. He knows the good stuff about me and also the bad stuff about me. And that could and does sound a little bit scary if it wasn't for the fact that he loves me as much as he does. And I believe that's true for me, and it's true for you too. He knows you. He wants to comfort you in your lows, rejoice with you in your highs. He wants what's best for you now and in your future. He wants to protect and care for you. He wants to guide you. There is no special password, no magical formula to following Jesus as your ultimate shepherd. He simply calls you to listen to his voice. And you can do that by simply reading the Bible. It's what Bach did. He cherished hearing God speak to him in this way. His Bible is now locked up, I imagine, in some glass cabinet in a library in St. Louis in the States. But if you ever have a chance to look at it, people who have looked at it, there's markings everywhere. All the pages are creased. It's hearing Jesus speak of his love for him that led him to write, sheep may safely graze and pasture in a watchful shepherd's care. Consider for yourself maybe how watchful, how good has the care been from whichever shepherd you are or have trusted in. How does it compare to the Good Shepherd, Jesus? Jesus unashamedly claims to be the shepherd we all need. If you've heard something this evening that's maybe struck a chord with you, please can I really encourage you to take a first step in finding out a bit more about Jesus. Matt's going to come a bit later and share some of the ways in which you can do that. But do feel free to just come and have a chat with one of us afterwards. We'd love to chat with you. This next piece we're about to play you now speaks of Bach's very real experience of life with Jesus as his good shepherd. It's called Jesus' Joy of Man's Desiring. And in its original sung version, here are some of the words. Well for me that I have Jesus. Oh, how tightly I hold him, that he might refresh my heart when I'm sick and sad. Jesus I have, who loves me and gives himself to me. He is my life's strength, my eye's desire and sun, my soul's treasure and pleasure. Therefore, I will not leave Jesus.